Would really appreciate that. We're about 35 seconds away from launching tonight's show. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got aliens, buddy. You totally got aliens. Fabster, how's it going, man? Good to see you tonight. Gary, yes, Gary Spikes Jr., there he is. Double Tim and Greg Moyes are here, everyone. Rooted in gorgeous sacredness. Thanks for coming on in. Hi, Virgil. Oh my gosh, look who it is, everyone. It is Manitoba Becky, the lovely and talented pride of Brandon, Manitoba. She is a wheat king, everybody. She is a wheat king. D. McKenna, thanks for coming on in. Richard Elmore, good to see you. Madison App, welcome to the show. Enjoy it tonight. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor and click that subscribe button. All of our archives are on Twitter, on YouTube at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great paranormal show for you tonight. Mike Ricksecker returns. He is the author of A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people, the historic paranormal books of Ghosts of Maryland, Ghosts and Legends of Oklahoma, Campfire Tales, all around the world. I mean, if there isn't a ghost story out there that he hasn't written about, I'm telling you, it's going to be hard to find. You've seen him on television. He's been at every major conference around North America. Why? Because he is that thorough with his investigation. This is why over 30 years of investigating, people call him the Ghostorian. And we're glad to have Mike here. Mike, it's been a while since we've had you on the show, but damn it, man, I am so glad you are back and that you are here. How you been doing, my friend?
I've been doing pretty well, Dave. Thanks for having me on. And, while you're doing the roll call there, I couldn't help but to admire some of the paraphernalia you have in the background there. It looks like somebody's a little bit of a Guns N' Roses fan there.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome.
What are you talking about? The fact that they just introduced a brand new tour again. I'm telling you, as soon as that border opens up, I am getting tickets. And I am traveling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I am so tired and sick of not being at rock concerts and getting out. Oh, man. I realize it's all for a good cause, but hey, it's time to rock and roll. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
It's time to rock and roll.
Let me get out there and live a little now.
You tell me. You tell me, my friend. Hey, what's it like being in the U.S. where you can actually travel to conferences now?
Oh, that feels so good. Ohio just dropped their mask mandate yesterday. I'm in the Cleveland area, and I had my first conference just a couple of weeks ago at the Ohio State Reformatory, Parapsychon, put on by Tri-C Ghost Hunters, and it was a fantastic event. A bunch of people came out for that. Everybody was real happy to, start getting into these things again, and it's been missed. It was the first one that I've done in a year and a half. Same for most everybody else, and it was just great to see everyone again.
Mike, I got to ask you. I realize for a writer, an author, a researcher, that the conferences mean a chance for sales. And you are someone who makes your life on this. And you're one of the very few who actually, uses this field as a predominant for your income and how to live. For you, how important has the conference scene been, considering the last year and a half you haven't been at one? I mean, there's been virtual ones, but they're not the same.
Yeah, virtual is definitely different. So, there are a lot of things that you kind of have to sit down and try to figure out because you're not getting out in front of people. You're not hitting the conferences. You're not getting all those sales that are there. And so like my girlfriend Nicole was kind of in the same boat. She's a psychic medium, and she does a lot with her online platform. So really, she showed me about how to take what I was doing and turn it into a learning platform, which is what I've just recently released here with the Connected Universe portal. So yeah, just had the Shadow Dimension docuseries come out, and now I'm also just released the Connected Universe portal learning platform. So it's like other ways to try to bring in that income, but also put great information in front of people as well.
Are people still paying attention, Mike?
They really are. It just in a different way than they had been. People are, now more concerned, of course, about health and the state of we're not going to get political, but the state of things politically and how the world is shaping up, and that calls into question a lot of different metaphysical concepts. Space exploration comes into question here, and things of that nature, as far as what our future holds. And so it's not just about ghosts and things that go bump in the night. That's something that interests us, but everything is connected here, and so a lot of these other types of concepts come into play.
What are those concepts?
I mean, we're talking about something that's been happening a lot lately here is disclosure. There's been a lot more going on in the realm of extraterrestrials. The government is actually admitting, yes, there are objects out there in the air, UAPs that we can't identify. So that opens up a whole other ball of wax into some of the phenomena that I've been researching when it comes to some of the our ancient history as a people, but also, and this is what I'm going to be speaking about this coming week in Laughlin, Nevada for the UFO Mega Conference, if some of these shadow entities are actually extraterrestrials. That's been a big question here of late. And so while a lot of the different haunted venues had been shut down, conferences were shut down, it's still a topic that's very prevalent on people's minds.
Talk about the UFO MegaCon, because very quickly over the last 3 years, this conference has become a real standout feature for a lot of major names and players in the field of ufology. And I believe this is your first time speaking at this event. And we have a mutual friend, Johnny Enoch, who helps run that. And Johnny actually helped me start Spaced Out Radio. For you, and you worked with Johnny on the Alaskan Triangle, I believe. Good dude. Very good dude. So for you, going into this major conference, now we really have three or four. I mean, there's UFOCon in San Francisco, there's MegaCon in Laughlin, we have Contact in the desert, and then there's the International UFO Congress in the fall. So some major conferences that are taking part in this great steady project. But for you, people will know you as more of a paranormal guy than a UFO guy. So how do you blend the two?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great question. Yeah, and Johnny is this is my first year at that, and Johnny's the one that made that connection, because we did work together on the Alaska Triangle, and then we've had him on our show a couple times as well, and we just it was a fast friendship that developed, which was absolutely fantastic. He is a great guy, and kind of goes back to again, all these different things are connected. A lot of these, and not even just shadow entities, but a lot of these different phenomena that we're witnessing. There's a blending of disciplines here. So what we may be experiencing as paranormal may be extraterrestrial, or what people may think is extraterrestrial could be paranormal, or something in between. We could be experiencing something that's actually interdimensional here, that just depending on which lens you're viewing through, which discipline you're following, you may see it as yours, but it may be something that's actually interdimensional and something from a much different plane of our universe that we just observe through, again, that different lens that we happen to be viewing it through. And I'm trying to really kind of keep myself open to the different possibilities that are out there, that, okay, like I said, I'm going to be talking about shadow entities there, but, from, okay, there's a lot of similarities here that people see in the extraterrestrial field that people from the paranormal field think are, they're one and the same thing. You hear about people waking up in the middle of the night. They see this, entity in their room. Maybe it's a shadowy figure. Some people see it as an ET. They're experiencing sleep paralysis. You hear like these very similar stories on both sides of the house. And I think it's actually something in the middle there.
For you, how has your investigative game changed? Because for many in the paranormal field, they don't want to overlap UFOs or cryptids. They want to just keep it the way it is, that the paranormal is the paranormal. It has nothing to do with anything else. And to me, without sounding insultive to anybody, that is very narrow-minded thinking. But for you and people like you, I'm very curious to see what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's not meant to disparage anyone. And people that just they just want to go, they want to ghost hunt and experience that. That's fine. Have at it. I'm trying to do a little bit more here and get to some of these deeper answers of the universe. So you have to go outside your box. And years ago, I kind of compartmentalize a number of different things like ghosts or ghosts, shadow entities or shadow entities, ETs or ETs. And the more that I get involved, the more that I research, the more I dive into all this, I see this blending across the spectrum, which is, kind of why I came up with the connected universe idea with the connected universe portal, because all these things are linked together. And it makes a lot of sense anyway, since we're all made of stardust. We all started back at the Big Bang together. So it would make sense that we're all connected to all of these different things in some way, shape, or form. So, it's again, you don't want to disparage anybody and say that they're narrow-minded, but on the flip side of that, it's like, I want people to open their minds and be open to these different concepts. In the forward of my book, A Walk in the Shadows, I say I reserve the right to change my mind on a number of these different concepts, because I think that we need to keep ourselves open to different ideas, different concepts, that something that we knew 10 years ago is different than it is today, is going to be different than 10 years from now, as we keep gaining more information, keep learning more.
Okay, let's take a step back here for a quick second, because, every time we bring somebody in, and, you've been on this show probably 8-9 times over the years that we have had you as a guest here. So I'm curious, for the people who, our audience has expanded a lot. Let's just be blunt. It really has, Mike, since you were last on. So for people who may not understand who you are, how did you end up getting into this field?
Yeah, well, it goes back to the beginning, before wheels were invented. No, it does go back a ways, though, to when I was about 8 years old. I woke up in the middle of the night, and there, standing in the corner of my bedroom, kind of the classic story, was a tall, dark figure. I had no idea at the time that you called it a shadow being, a shadow person, whatever you want to call it. I just thought there was an intruder in my room, and it was about to kill me, because that's what you think at that age. Of course, it didn't. I'm still alive to tell the tale, which is fantastic. But it did something very unusual, nonetheless. I was trying to scream at the time. I was, nothing's coming out of my mouth because I was just so terrified. But it came up to my bed, leaned over. I'm staring up into this blank face. Everything's dark. There's no eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing. And it grabbed me by the wrists, crossed my arms across my body, and ran off down the hall, and of all places, into a closet. I have no idea why it ran into the closet, but that's where it went. Found my voice, found my legs, ran off to my parents' bedroom, and, they're nice, kind parents. They're trying to console me, because I'm screaming my head off. But I'd been awake for this whole thing, and, they're trying to tell me that I just had a bad dream. It's like, I didn't have a bad dream. But, I just kind of accepted that at 8 years old. Okay, that's what mom and dad are saying. Fast forward 5 years, we're moving out of that house in Massachusetts to a new house in Ohio. And I'm unpacking boxes, putting things away. And I kept seeing, standing in the doorway to my bedroom, a figure. This one was more translucent in nature, and I'd turn and look at it, and it would take off running toward my parents' bedroom down the hall. And this happened a number of times. I'd just be unpacking boxes, putting things away, and there it would be standing in my doorway, and I'd look at it, and it would take off. It was, again, translucent. It was very, very fast. So after a few days of this happening, I decided to ask my mom about it. Perhaps she thought I was a little bit more mature, being a 13-year-old. I can't imagine being too much more mature, but apparently a little bit. And she told me that she had seen the same thing, which was great for me. It was, affirmation of what I had seen. Okay, I'm not crazy. And she said it, rather nonchalantly. She didn't seem alarmed or anything like that at all. So that was also great because, okay, now I'm not frightened. I'm not alarmed either. So I got playful with this thing, and I started calling him Tom, like Peeping Tom. And anytime I'd see him in the doorway, I'd say, "Hi, Tom," and he'd take off. And that activity lasted for about 3 or 4 months, kind of subsided, and it just, I didn't see him again after that. So I just chalked it up to something that was in the house. I was curious about the new family moving in, deemed we were okay, and he just went about its business. So those were my first couple of significant shadow experiences growing up. And when I was about 15, I had my first little paranormal investigation. Of course, I had no idea that's what you called it at the time. This was like 1989, thereabouts. So there weren't any of the paranormal shows out at the time. The closest thing you really had was In Search Of, which was, had an earlier show run. Sometimes they showed paranormal investigations on there with Leonard Nimoy. And, my friend David and I were at our friend's Lori's house. And we're just, shooting the breeze, talking teen drama, that sort of thing. She lived in an older historic house in downtown area. And all of a sudden she tells us, "I think my house is haunted." And it's like, whoa, okay, this is interesting. She tells us about the old cemetery that's in the backyard, some of the things going on around the house. And then her most concerning thing was that in her bedroom, she thought her one wall was very haunted because she'd try to tack up things on the wall, like posters and what have you, and they would always fall down, whether it was an hour or a day, a week later. She couldn't keep anything tacked up on there. So David and I, we're going to go investigate. And so we head upstairs. She's showing us the bedroom, showing us the wall. We're checking it out. And I didn't know this about my friend David at the time, but he was extremely sensitive. And so he put his hand flat to the wall like that. And all of a sudden he turned this bright red, started sweating profusely. And I'm looking at David like, oh my gosh, what in the world's going on with my friend? And so he starts going wall to wall in the house to see if there are any more hot spots like this. And that was really the moment that I knew. I'm kind of looking at him and I'm looking at the wall. That, okay, I'm absolutely fascinated by all of this, and this is going to be something that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life.
That is very profound to have that experience and then all of a sudden say that this is what I want to do. I mean, as a child, how do you make that decision that you're going to be a monster hunter? I mean, we all, honestly, we all dream about it. And by the way, we should give a shout out in our chat room to one of the great paranormal and magicians out there, Joe Diamond.
Hey, Joe.
Love Joe Diamond.
Awesome.
He was here a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, for my birthday show. And he was performing tricks for us.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we had him on, I think, about a month ago now. Fantastic guy. Love Joe.
Great guy. Fantastic hair. He needs a shave, though. Needs a shave. You can't figure out what he's doing with that beard. But that's okay. We still love him around here. But, getting back to the career, I mean, saying that you're going to be a monster hunter, I mean, it's great that you wanted to do that, but did you go do something else as well in order to try and, subsidize your career? Because there's not a lot of real high-paying monster hunter jobs out there.
Yeah, I don't think I really thought of it back then as a sort of job. I mean, at that age, at 15, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. So, I played for the high school team. So that was that, and I wanted to be a writer. I've been writing since I was 7 years old. So that was those were the two big things back then. I ended up going into the Air Force directly out of high school, and became an IT professional. I got trained there, and then when I left the Air Force after 6 years, I was in the IT field. So, in fact, my degree is actually in simulation programming, of all things. So, yeah, it's not something I thought of. Okay, the paranormal is going to be a career, but that's kind of what it is turned out to be. Primarily through my writing. Along the way, my first book that I wrote was actually a mystery novel. And that was kind of like what I was writing when I was much younger. As a 7-year-old, I wanted to mimic the Encyclopedia Brown books, and so that's what I did. And along the way, I was writing these little mysteries. I wrote some ghost stories as well, and I had put up some paranormal fiction from time to time. And after I had that first book out, my editor for my Ghosts of Maryland book, which was my first paranormal book, approached me and said, well, I know you're primarily a fiction writer, but we're looking to expand our line of paranormal books. And I was living in Maryland at the time. And she said, would you be willing, because she saw that I had an interest in the paranormal, would you be willing to take on a true nonfiction book about ghosts in Maryland? And it was like, yeah, absolutely. And I'd been involved some way, shape, or form, with the paranormal for a while. Not doing a ton of investigations back then, but doing a lot of research. Touching base with a lot of people, because back then it was like you're talking like the old Yahoo groups or the old forums back on the web from like 1996 and things like that. But when that first book deal landed for Ghosts of Maryland, that really catapulted me onto this train of all of this paranormal research and writing the books, and that's how I just fell down the rabbit hole right then.
We have about a minute 45 before we got to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, our guest tonight, Mike Ricksecker, literally paranormal writer extraordinaire, and he'll be appearing next week at UFO MegaCon in Laughlin, Nevada. For you, as you decided to go down this rabbit hole, what changes did you see in you going from, the United States Air Force to going to get your education to all of a sudden becoming the monster hunter you've always wanted to be?
I mean, there was a lot, it was, really the biggest thing for me was getting out of my comfort zone. I'm actually more of an introvert, and now I'm doing all these public speaking engagements. So when my parents first came to see me speak, they thought that was, kind of the most amazing thing or the wildest thing, because I was always this like really shy kid, and I had stage fright, and all of a sudden here I am talking in front of all these people and giving these presentations. So it really helped me grow in a lot of different ways. And then I get into all the filmmaking, over 700 videos out there on YouTube. Now the Shadow Dimension is out there, that docuseries. And so I've grown in a lot of different areas that I didn't expect. So it's given me a lot of things that I didn't know I would ever, possess, down the road.
Good for you. Good for you. And you know what? The one thing I like about your work, and there are very few people out there that I will say that this is somebody you need to follow. This is somebody that you need to keep track of. But you are one of them, because I find you very thorough. I find you very investigative, very knowledgeable. You're skeptical, but not to the point of being unbelievably hard. You're trying to find logical answers for the illogical questions. And very few investigators are actually trying to do that, rather than just going out in the field and just playing with the phenomena. And that's why we love you here, Mike. Mike Ricksecker is our guest tonight. When we come back from the break, we're going to get into shadow people, shadow dimensions. What are they? Are they evil? Are they not? Why do we see them? We'll find out when we come back on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, we're clear.
All right.
Perfect. That's a good start. Good, solid start there, buddy.
Absolutely.
I thought so. I thought
yeah.
so.
I always like your show, and I appreciate the compliments, Dave. So,
Oh, you know me, man.
I
You
really
know I've
do.
always been a fan of yours. God, we've known each other, what,
And I have yours.
5 years now? 5 years we've known each other?
It's been something like that,
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's pretty insane, man. It's amazing how quickly time goes, and you just get. I mean, like with you or myself, you just get caught up with things. Are you still working with Vanessa Hogel or no?
No, she stepped away from Edge of the Rabbit Hole last July.
Yeah.
So, and I'd been publishing her books as well, but it's not like we had a real big falling out or anything like that. But when she stepped away from Edge of the Rabbit Hole, she just kind of stopped talking to me, except for when it came time to get her royalty checks, and it was kind of awkward.
I know that feeling.
Yeah,
not with the royalty checks, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like, nothing, I mean, nothing really bad happened. So it was just very awkward. And so a couple months ago, she had made an announcement that she was republishing or creating second editions of all of her, books that she had published with Haunted Road Media. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. I still have all the rights to those. I'm still the publisher. And you're making this announcement. You can't just do that, so we came to an agreement where I just released all the rights back to her. I was going to make a big stink of it, but it's like you're kind of breaching some etiquette here, and so that was that. We parted ways.
Yeah. The one thing that I have learned in this field is without, I don't want to sound bashing or anything like that, but those who you think that they have your back, whether they're fellow investigators or what, that in the end, it's all about you, and that's tough. And but on the flip side, when, like, for us, it's a little bit different because we deal with volunteers. And recently, I had to part ways with my booking guy, Corey. Great guy, fantastic guy, love the guy, but he has a lot going on at home. Mm-hmm. He has a lot going on at home. His daughter has health issues. When that tornado ripped through Texas, his house had damage. I mean, when you look at that, you kind of like, okay, how do I sit there and ask a volunteer to do that job?
Right.
And because I can't afford to pay, I can't afford to do that. And so you just have to, a show like this relies heavily on volunteer participation. And,
Sure.
Volunteers, they come and go. They totally can, and...
Yeah, I've had to go through a few of my own, with Edge of the Rabbit Hole and Haunted Road Media and all that.
Yeah.
And, it's sad when you have to let somebody go like that. That had to be really recent here with Corey because he was the one that was coordinating
just last week,
getting me on the show. Yeah,
it was just last week, and he's a good dude, man, very good dude, and but hey, things happen and life gets in the way, and if it's not a paid job, you can't expect people to stick around forever. Loyalty only goes so far until real life happens.
That's true. That's true. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but we're lucky. We got a great team, and that I've kind of found myself remotivated to kind of rebuild our entire back end behind the scenes of Spaced Out Radio, and I got to tell you, we're probably at the strongest that we've ever been, ever. And
good.
Yeah. And it's, I look at our team now compared to where we were even a month ago, and it's unrecognizable. But everybody that we have added has just been fun and incredible. And 416 Bitcoin, I understand you. I want to talk to you on the phone. Okay? I don't talk business over text, man. So please get my hint that I've been trying to drop to you for the last couple of months. Send me your phone number. I don't know if you got that hint or not. Send me your phone number and we can talk, brother. I have no problem with that, even though you are a Leafs fan. All right. I just want to say a quick big thank you to Jeremy, to Andrew, and to to Angry Carl for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show. And if you're new here, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, and ring that bell so you know when we are going to be live every day of the week here, 7 days a week, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time. Let's rock and roll with the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the Woo Train. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Mike Ricksecker. This man is one of the best paranormal writers in North America. I have no problem saying that. I have no problem standing behind my words with that. I mean, Mike, you got what, 20, 30 books out there now? I mean, you are insane.
11.
Well, it seems like every day and a half you're putting out a new book somewhere, you know?
Yeah, Walk in the Shadows was the latest, and I've actually the first edition came out in 2020. I turned right around and came out with a second edition this past January, because there's so many people that reach out to me. You were wondering what was going on with me during the pandemic, and that was one of those things. Was there was a lot more information that I was actually still gathering and updated and put into the book, and things from the Shadow Dimension docuseries actually ended up in there as well. So, and of course, I'm working on more books right now. The next one is going to be the Alaska Triangle.
Right. We should give a shout out to your website, MikeRicksecker.com.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to grab your books there, they can, and there's a lot of really cool information there. So let's make sure that we get that out there as well. I want to ask you, shadow people, man. You gave us a great shadow person story of your own experience right off the bat of the show. And I got to ask you, is this just something that has stuck with you, kind of like an itch you couldn't scratch, and that's why you keep going back into this field and trying to figure out what these shadow people are?
Well, it was, curiosity about, all of this activity in general, not necessarily shadow people at first. That kind of blew up for me some years back as I started doing more presentations, started doing more conferences, and the subject kept coming up. And because the subject kept coming up, I put together a little shadow person presentation, which of course, just created more questions and people sharing their stories with me. Really, I had an interest in the supernatural in general. I wanted to know more information about, what these different entities were. I had and still do have a very strong and keen interest in history. There's a lot of our history that today is, it's a jumbled mess. We don't truly know what really happened way back in the day. We get bits and pieces. The story gets twisted around, and you have to kind of like muddle through all of that to get to the real truth. And for me, that's kind of putting on my detective hat, like my mystery stories that I would write about, and so I get to dive into those. So I love that aspect of it as well. So yeah, when it comes to the shadows, that's when I first published my Ghost of Maryland book, I wasn't actually talking about shadow people back then. I was still reluctant to really share that story because my parents again had tried to drill into me with that first one that it was just a dream, and a lot of people experience this where they have that hesitancy of, okay, if I tell people this story, are they going to think I'm crazy? Seeing maybe a ghost of a historic person, maybe that one's not so crazy. A lot of people talk about things like that. Go to a historic location, you think you see the lady in white or whatever, but talking about an actual shadow coming up, manipulating your arms the way it did for me, that was a little tough to talk about at first, but what really helped me along the way was as I went out there and started giving these presentations, and more people started talking to me about their experiences. It helped me realize that, okay, I'm not nuts. These things really did happen to me. And in turn, as I was writing my books and sharing my stories at conferences, it was also helping people realize they weren't crazy either. They had also had these experiences. So we're all helping each other here. But yeah, like I said, along the way, it started to hit me that, okay, shadow phenomenon is something that people really have a genuine interest in. It scares a lot of people. They want to know more about it. I had experiences, so let's dive into this.
Okay, so for people who may not know what shadow people are, give us an example or give us a description of what they are. Because the people in our chat rooms, they'll know what this is about. But the people on our radio stations tuning in, or maybe the podcast tuning in for the first time, they may not fully understand or comprehend.
I do a 2-hour workshop on this and what they are. Yeah, and that's kind of the question. People will send me emails or they'll just ask that question. Okay, what is a shadow person? And I mean, really, they are a lot of different things. They come in a lot of different varieties. The way we look at them. There's humanoid figure. There's the hat wearing entities. You have these mists and wisps, the crawlers, the hooded figures. And then you get into the old hag and old hag syndrome. So they have a lot of different appearances for one. And then on top of that, they may be a lot of different things. Some are just human spirits that can't fully manifest as an apparition, so they come off as a shadow. There are some that are, more nefarious in nature. A handful that we may actually consider demonic. There are ones that are what I think a true shadow entity is an interdimensional being, something that has come here from another plane of existence. Some of these things are extraterrestrials. Others may be time travelers. So, when you start digging into all this phenomena, you start to realize there's a lot of overlap here, and that these things are, they're all different, but they seem to be using the same means to be able to appear here on our plane of existence.
Okay, so Mike, how do we tell whether or not they are benevolent or malevolent? Because I think they have a real malevolent feature to them. I have encountered one shadow person, and I recall this was back in 2005. My first wife and I had just separated, and I was living in a basement suite. And I find this so ironic because 3 weeks beforehand, I was driving home in the middle of the night, coming back from the radio station to my house, and I'm listening to Art Bell back in his Coast to Coast days talking about shadow people. And in my area where I lived, I mean, it was possible. It didn't happen often, but it was possible there would be a bear or a cougar walking through the subdivisions up in our area because we were up in the mountains. And long story short, when I got home that night, it was probably 1:30 in the morning. And my entrance to my basement suite was behind the house. So I had to open up the gate, walk along the side of the house, and my sensor light was on. And I was like, okay. So if the house was, right there and I had to turn around the house to get to my door and look down, there was maybe a 6-foot gap between, or an 8-foot gap between the house and the back retaining wall to go to the neighbor's house. So I went real close to that retaining wall, man, and I looked, and there was a shadow person standing there staring at my door. And it was right out of something like a young kid would draw. Very square. It had like a round head. There was no hat. Round head. You know how they put like the square arms and the square body for like a shirt? It looked like that. There was no hands. And then you got the pants and there was no feet. And it turned and looked at me. I didn't see a face. And then it turned 180 degrees and dashed right through the retaining wall on the other side of the house. And I stood there and I said, can you believe this? And I swore. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be. This is exactly what Art Bell was just talking about a couple weeks ago, and like I was freaking out. So, how do we know if they are benevolent or malevolent?
That takes research and investigation. I mean, you're not going to know like your experience that you just explained there. There's no way for you to know in that moment, because all it did was it looked at you and then it turned and ran. So you have no idea. I mean, from that description, you may have startled it. Like,
I felt like I did.
Oh my gosh, somebody saw me. I'm going to take off. So I can't say that's because a lot of people try to make shadow people out to be like like they're all evil. They're all the darkest of the dark, the evil, the most evil, and it's not the case. I mean, yes, there are certainly some shadow entities that are evil, but many are not. There are some that are benevolent. Most I find are just benign. They're neither evil nor good. They're just kind of in the middle. A lot of them are just watching and observing, and they're disconcerting to us because they occlude the light. There's no light that reflects off of them for us to see what exactly they are. And so when we see a figure like that, and there's no reference for us. We don't see an eyes. We don't see eyes. We don't see a nose. We don't see a mouth. So there's nothing for us to reference. It's just this dark figure. And so that immediately, puts us on alert because, okay, something's here. We can't identify what that is. And people tend to fear what they don't understand. So all of that said, there's something very simplistic that I say, and that is, with humans, some humans are good, some humans are bad. The same thing with shadow people. Some shadow people are good, some shadow people are bad. They each have their own individual personalities and characteristics, and it's going to take some sort of interaction or some sort of observation of what they're doing, some research or investigation to figure out what this particular shadow entity wants and who they may actually be.
What causes a shadow person to show itself? I had always heard and read that they usually come around when you are at one of the lowest points of your life, whether it's depression, whether it's being suicidal, whether it's a marriage that has just ended and you're feeling the sadness from that, or the loss of a family member. There's always something to do with the dark side of this. Now, that may be, just prototypical for the conversation, but why do they come around? Have you figured out in your research what triggers it?
This is what I think triggers it. When people go down that route, I mean, that's kind of the superstitious route. That's kind of, the same thing when people think that, shadow entities are a harbinger of death. A lot of people ask me, well, is the Grim Reaper a shadow person? It's like, no, the Grim Reaper is a psychopath. He guides souls into the afterlife. He's just a guy doing his job. But
I would agree with that.
Here's what I think kicks it off. Because the question will come up, okay, why is it that I see shadows? Just to begin with, why do I see shadows? Because some people see more shadows than apparitions. Some people see more apparitions than shadows. I happen to be, the former, in which I see more shadows than apparitions. I will see an apparition, on occasion. And in fact, I've actually seen a shadow morph into the apparition of a little girl. Now, that was wild. But here's what I think happens. Everybody has their own personal resonance, their own personal vibration. Well, these entities do as well. I think these entities are around us a lot more often than we actually realize. And there are certain moments that we're not really sure what the catalyst is or why it happens, but for a brief moment, we are resonating at the same frequency with that entity. And the reason why someone may see more shadows is because your frequency has gotten more in tune with that of the shadow entity, so that when you're around one, you kind of get in tune with it a little bit, and all of a sudden you start to see, oh, there's a shadow over there. You might see the whole figure. It has more to do with personal vibration than some of these more superstitious notions.
What about the fact of, okay, so I'm going to assume that, if somebody dies or something and the shadows come around, then that would be the superstition side of everything. That's what you're saying, correct? If I got it right.
Well, yeah, and there is something to the fact that when somebody passes away, they may go visit a number of their relatives. You hear about that sort of thing all the time. And sometimes a human spirit will only come off as a shadow. And a lot of times, my good friend Rob Guttrow has a great story about this. Yeah, Rob's fantastic. And he was visited by his aunt one time. She was trying to get a message to Rob's mother, which was her sister, and just couldn't. So she wanted to use Rob to do that and traveled a long way to get to where Rob was and did not have the energy to come off as a full apparition. So she could only appear as a shadow to him, but he knew it was his aunt. He got the message from her related to his mother. So imagine somebody who's just passed away and they want to go visit a whole bunch of people. Well, at some point, they're expending a bunch of energy to do that. And so maybe they showed up as an apparition to the first person, but by the time they get to number 5 or 6, they're not coming off as an apparition anymore because they just don't have the energy to do it anymore.
Right. Okay. So, but you also mentioned the angel of death. And that is something that I know I've had 2 occurrences with it. Not personally, but I've had 2 occurrences with it, one with my mother and one with a grandmother who passed away. And I know that feeling. I would recognize that feeling in a heartbeat. And, if you're not the one dying, I could say it's a pretty cool feeling to feel the power of it around, if you believe in picking up energies. So how does that differ from a shadow person or what we would typify as an angel?
I mean, it's all energy, and it comes down to with the Grim Reaper, Angel of Death, whatever you want to call it. It's a different type of entity. It's again, it has a different function than some of these other things that we are observing. I mean, I suppose you could probably classify almost anything as interdimensional when it comes to something because it's coming from another plane of existence, right? Whether it's a ghost, it could be ET traveling interdimensionally. It could be somebody's spirit guide. They're all on different planes of existence. So in that regard, they have something very similar. But when it comes to those types of entities, whether it's an angel or the Grim Reaper or something like that, they seem to be like really almost another class of their own. And perhaps that's us being humans and we're trying to categorize everything. But when it comes to more of your shadow person, who seems to be more of many of them are being human spirits or entity coming from maybe another galaxy somewhere that's traveled through some wormhole or whatever to be able to get here and manifest. Those are a little bit more. Those are different than these angelic beings.
Really? Where does religion come into play on this subject? Because I believe you're Wiccan, right? Or
no,
weren't you? I thought you were.
No, I was never a Wiccan.
Well, you always maybe you were goth. I don't know. Big difference.
I mean, I had an ex-girlfriend who tried to play a little bit more goth, but that wasn't me. I mean, I actually identify as a Christian, although very different than probably a lot of other Christians. I grew up Catholic, and so yeah, it's been an interesting ride with all this, especially since most of my family still is Catholic. So sometimes I think I'm a little off my rocker. But again, my mother has seen this stuff. My father, who doesn't believe in any of this stuff, has had an encounter with a shadow person And whenever he tells the story, I'm like, well, Dad, that's a ghost story. And he's like, no, 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 no. So it's kind of humorous. But yeah, it's interesting when it comes to religion, because a lot of people will try to say, especially those hardcore Christians, will try to say that, I'm talking with demons and things like that, which, not all of these things are demons. In all the years I've been doing this, I've had one demonic case, and that was the Monster in the Closet episode that we filmed for The Haunted, in which we actually had Carl Johnson, renowned demonologist, come out and help us with that. And what's interesting is he's a very good friend of mine, and we had him on our show here a few months back, and he was also part of the Shadow Dimension docuseries. And the question that I asked him was, well, Carl, this is a field of study that you are heavily involved with, demonology. You go out on these cases all the time. So what was the last case that you actually deemed was demonic? And he said, Mike, yeah, I go out on cases all the time. A lot of these, people that they believe what they're experiencing is a demon. It's just not. It's something else that's going on. There are a lot of times the human spirit is just a jerk in acting out. His last demonic case was actually that case in Edmond, Oklahoma 10 years ago with us when we filmed for The Haunted. So here's a guy, this is the thing that he does. And it's extremely rare even for him. He's been doing it for over 50 years. So it's tough sometimes, with, we were talking before about, people being, rather closed-minded, when it comes to the paranormal. And I think a lot of people who are ultra-religious are also very closed-minded. But if you look at religion, it talks about a lot of the same things that we currently talk about. We're talking about a supernatural world. When we start talking about, the afterlife, that's what we're talking about when it comes to the paranormal. We're talking about these other realms, these other planes of existence. We're talking about, the place that, we're supposed to go to. When we start, breaking down concepts of, the possibility that this is a simulated universe, that's all in, most of our major religions. You look at like reincarnation. We're down here for a while. We go off to whatever their home world is, get recycled, come back here. That's pretty much what a simulation is. If you look at it from the perspective of, a lot of people think it's a computer simulation. I think it's a, bit more, biological or molecular or what have you, something more organic. But, other religions talk about, we're down here preparing for something to go off to, the other world. That is essentially what a simulation is. So they all go hand in hand. It's just, trying to get past those, connotations of, ultra religious thinking paranormal stuff is evil. And, there are some there are a lot of paranormal people that out there that actually, do adhere to some religion, which is fine. But then you have others that, shun all religion because of those preconceived notions. So, it's kind of difficult to wade those waters sometimes.
I have an interesting story for you. My buddy Mike is in the chat room tonight on YouTube, and he had something happen in a forest about a year ago. And I want to get your opinion of this, because this story, I've told it before on the show here, but this story just gives me the chills. It literally gives me the shakes. And I've been to the area where it happened, and now I sit there and I wonder, are the voices still there? Fill it in with Mike Ricksecker, famed paranormal investigator, author, researcher, television guru, and a man who still believes that parting his hair on the side makes him look fantastic. MikeRicksecker.com is his website. We'll be back with more with our good friend Mike right after this. I had to get the hair
The
comment
hair,
in.
nice.
Love it. Your hair is always perfect, man. It is always perfect. Hey, bud,
I just got a cut today, so
I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
all right, sure.
All right, I'm just going to go like this, and I'll be right back. And bear with me here. And hey, Bigfoot Rob, how you doing, guys? All right, Ozrazel, how are you? We'll be back. All right, buddy. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine.
Dude, it is so... I spent a little bit extra time with my dog outside because it's still daylight out here, man. 10 p.m. 10 p.m. Pacific, and it's still daylight.
It's still daylight. Nice.
Yeah. Come the solstice, it'll be daylight until about 11 o'clock, 11:15.
How far up there are you?
I'm not even halfway up the province, man.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, if I was in Alaska or if I was in the Yukon right now, the sun would still be shining.
Yeah. Well, I know that from the 3 years I spent in Alaska. That was crazy because it would never get dark. It would just get to like a dusk, and then it would lighten back up.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, man. It's really cool. Our fellow flat earther here, Dave, is throwing away all his globes. He will be back soon. Thanks, flat earther. Appreciate you, man. I love him. All right. Yeah. Otherwise, let's see what else we got cooking here in the chat room here. Hi, Bigfoot Rob. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. And who else joined us here? Real Paranormal Activity Podcast Network. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. And let's see. Who else is here? I'm quickly scrolling because we're about to go back on the air. Ed Clater, thank you so much for that $2 super chat, my friend. Really appreciate it. Thank you also to Rye, Sig, Greco, Jeremy, Andrew, and Carl. Really do appreciate it, the support, and that's a great way to do it. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We really do appreciate all of the love and support. Here we go with hour number 2, everyone. Hi, gorgeous Alicia.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott, enjoying the sunshine at this late hour here, way up high in British Columbia's mountains. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Eclipsarian. Eclipsarian is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Mike Ricksecker is here tonight. He's got 11 books out, all on the paranormal and supernatural. His website is MikeRicksecker.com. You definitely want to check it on out. He's one of the best in the business, in my opinion, when it comes to good, honest research and writing about the subject, looking for conclusions rather than just playing with ghosts, spirits, and everything in between. Mike, welcome back.
Always happy to be here.
Okay, I got a story that I want to share with you, and I'm very curious with your opinion. My buddy Mike, who is in our chat room tonight, he's a hunter. He's somebody who loves the wilderness. He has no problem going on out looking for Sasquatch in our forest or anything weird, strange. And he goes into this gravel pit where a lot of people do some camping in there. A lot of people will do some target shooting in that area. And that area is filled with rabbits and grouse and other small, very edible animals, shall we say. And Mike's out hunting one day, and he pulls his vehicle in there, gets out of his vehicle, and he's looking for footprints of if there's anything nearby. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, he hears my voice. Now, I am 20 minutes away in town at my daytime job. I'm not in the forest. But he hears my voice, clear as day, say, "Mike, help me. Come in here. Help me. Mike, help me. Come here." And it's not coming from one singular direction. It is emanating all around him. Now, I have heard this happen with skinwalkers. I have heard this happen with Wendigos. I've also heard from a local First Nations elder here that it also entails the little people who are tricksters. as well as potentially any type of forest dweller that takes care of the forest. A, have you ever heard of this happening? And B, what do you think it is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've heard of, but a little bit of a different take of the sounds or voices emanating that almost seem to come from nowhere, that are really almost more like time slips, where you're getting feedback from a different place in time, or the possibility that some of these I guess sounds or voices are traveling through a portal from some other dimension. Now, this was your voice, so it's not going to be that. I mean, you do hear, you kind of went down the laundry list of some of the different legendary creatures, the little people, or the skinwalkers, the Wendigo. I've been out there at the Hinsdale House in New York, and you're hearing the drums coming from the woods. And we actually ended up seeing the little blue lights come down out of the woods. Total wrong time of year for fireflies, by the way, because this was, late September. And so we've seen heard a lot of interesting things up there as well. So I probably don't have a direct answer for why he heard your voice, especially in that area, because I'm guessing this isn't a place that you regularly frequent. But I have heard, and actually, one of my experiences has been with, a sound emanating interdimensionally from another plane of existence. So, whether it's with this particular story, whether it's one of those types of entities that was trying to trick him, or something emanating from some other plane of existence or another point in time, it's hard to say just from that description.
See, I always wondered, and the feeling I got from it was like real sickening, that if he actually went into the forest looking for me, I had this feeling that something terrible was going to happen. And I don't think we would have seen him. It almost turning into one of these missing 411 type of David Paulides cases that he looks into. That's the feeling I got from it. And it just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, just thinking about it. And I realize there's not a lot of information to go on, but are there these legends, and we hear of all these legends, that are kind of walking and tripping through the forest, trying to suck people in? And, let's face it, any creature in the forest is probably going to want some sort of revenge on people for the way we treat the environment, the way we treat animals, the way we treat forests. There's still idiots out there who will throw a lit cigarette in the middle of a dry forest, leading to forest fires. I mean, we still see it happening every year. And, it wouldn't surprise me if these forest protectors, if we could call them that, are just pissed off at humans, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about something that's a predator, well, what do we do as a predator when we're trying to hunt something? We use different things to, like make bird calls and try to attract those animals to us so that we can shoot them and take home that game. Well, if you're talking about a predator of humans, well, what's their bird call going to be? It's going to be a human voice, and if they know us at all, then they would try to use one that we're familiar with. If it is one of these, maybe it would be something like a Wendigo. Those are ones that are certainly more cannibalistic. Of course, I'm not going to know for sure, but that would certainly make some sense to me.
All right. Well, let's go to a question here from Kirk, because we love it when Kirk Seltzer with a splash of lime gets his questions in. And he is asking, Mike, what is your best Maryland ghost story for a guy from that city that reads Baltimore?
There's a lot of great ghost stories around Maryland. It's always hard to pick one, because it's a very historic state. But one of my personal experiences from there when I was researching Ghosts of Maryland, it's not going to sound like a big ghost story, but it was just a really cool experience for me. But it was at the Samuel Mudd House, very, very haunted location. That's just outside of Waldorf, Maryland. And I had already previously been there, and all my photos, for whatever reason, had gone missing from when I had visited. So I went back there on an off day that I had, but lo and behold, it was an off day for the house, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm not going to be able to get these photos." So I was resigned to just stand there at the gate and get some shots of the house. Fortunately, one of the docents drove up, and he said that he was opening the house for a private showing, and he was kind enough to offer to let me walk through the house with him as he was opening it up and get my photos again. It's like, okay, this is great. So we're walking through the house together. He's telling me some of the different stories, and we're walking upstairs, and we're walking into the bedroom in which John Wilkes Booth had actually slept and spent the night. And so he's starting to tell the story of how they'll go in there in the mornings, and there'll be the impression on the bed as if somebody had just slept there. And so as he's walking into the room to open up the shades, I look down at the bed and I'm like, "Oh, you mean an impression like this?" And because there it was right on the bed, just like he described. And it was funny because he was all upset and going off on, see, this is what I'm talking about. Now I have to fix it up and make it look nice for the public, and et cetera, going on. I'm like, he was about to go fix it up. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Can I at least get a photo of this first? So I have a really nice photo of this bed impression that people don't usually see because they are very concerned about making the house look nice for the public. So again, not a huge, glamorous ghost story, but cool experience for me to be able to experience that there.
Definitely. All right, let's get to another question. This one comes from Vinny, who is asking, Mike, do you have any Bigfoot stories to share with us?
I mean, no, no personal experiences that I've had. I mean, people will share with me their Bigfoot and Sasquatch stories, but I can't say that I've ever experienced one. So, sorry.
Do you want to?
Do I want to experience? I mean, I'd be fine with that. I'm open to experiencing all these different things. I actually have a couple of stories about fairies and things like that, just not Bigfoot.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem. Let's go to another one here. This one comes from Big Fat Creep. Have you ever investigated any ghost ship stories or haunted streets?
Yeah, I used to until it unfortunately was burned in an arson fire. There was the Goldenrod showboat that was on along the Illinois River, just outside of Campbellsville, Illinois. And actually, this is a ferry story too. I mean, it's a very haunted location. We'd get all kinds of activity there, but there was one time we held an event there, and we had finished it up. There's only 3 of us left. Everybody else had gone. We're just sitting in the showroom, just kind of chatting. And the only light source in the room was my flashlight, which I had down on the floor and pointed off into the lobby area. And, all of a sudden I thought the 2 women that I was with, they're sitting on the ground. I'm standing up. And, I thought I saw this, translucent ball of light kind of just suddenly whoosh down between the 2 of them. And I kind of did a double take and was like, okay, at first I didn't think much of it. I was like, yeah, maybe my eyes were seeing things. But then all of a sudden, next to one of the women on the floor, I see this bar of light. I'm like, what in the world's that? And it's kind of almost like a little bit of a V shape. And so I go over there and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing, looking around. Okay, I don't see any light coming in from anywhere. Again, my flashlight was the only source of light. And I'm trying to break any light that might, and there's nothing. But there's this bar of light on the ground. And all of a sudden it does this little waving motion, almost like it's fluttering, and then poof, it was gone. I'm like, what in the world was that? And the women are asking, okay, what are you doing? So I described to them what had just happened. And I don't think they really believed me at that point in time. And all of a sudden I saw that translucent ball of light again kind of whoosh around one of the women. I'm like, oh, look, did you see that? They didn't see it because they're all looking up at me. Oh man, this is crazy. They're thinking I'm nuts. But then a moment later, that ball of light was all dancing and bouncing around the showroom, kind of between where the box seats were, and just, we're all, oh, did you see that? You see that? And, for none of us had our cameras going, of course, because we had been investigating all night and the batteries were dead. So all we have is this little audio clip for like 4 minutes of us describing what we're seeing as this thing's dancing around the showroom. And then finally, flew off into the lobby area. And so, it was a cool old boat until it burned down. And in that story, which I think was a ferry, and I think it was transformative, that it was there on the floor, was that bar of light for a moment. The waving part was maybe wings, and then it turned into that ball of light. So definitely a cool experience.
For you, what haven't you experienced yet that you want to, Mike?
Oh, interesting question. Something that I'm hoping happens here soon, because I'm about to go to Egypt here in a couple of weeks after the UFO mega conference. And we've had Freddie Silva on our show a couple of times, and he talks about this experience that he and his group had inside the Great Pyramid in the King's Chamber, in which they were doing like a little, they're doing some chanting, a little ceremonial work, what have you. And all of a sudden these light beams, came out of the walls. So I would love for something like that to happen while I'm there in Egypt.
That would be cool. Maybe you get lucky and the aliens actually come down and show you how they work.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? Why not? Why not? You can always keep your fingers crossed. Noble Patrick has a question here. What's your opinion on sleep paralysis?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I actually have an entire section of my book, A Walk in the Shadows, dedicated to sleep paralysis, because that's something that people are concerned about. A lot of people will experience sleep paralysis when they see the shadow entities. So a lot of people believe that the shadow entities are causing the sleep paralysis. So here's my opinion. And then you have the medical community that tries to say that the shadow entities you see are just a result of a hallucination from the sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is a real biological phenomenon. Your body will paralyze itself while you're sleeping to try to prevent you from acting out your dreams while you're asleep. So it's a real thing. And I've actually experienced real sleep paralysis a couple of times, kind of in the reverse fashion of what most people experience. Most people experience it as they're waking. You can experience it as you're sleeping. So like what happened with me, my body was so exhausted, it just shut down. And, my brain was still awake. I was able to, still hear everything and all that. And so I was very cognizant of everything going on around me, but my body had just, turned off, which was very disconcerting. So it's a real thing. But the medical community's idea that it's just a hallucination, I don't buy it. We dream about all kinds of different things, not just people. We dream of cars or motorcycles in our dreams, trees and bushes, airplanes going overhead. I've had dreams of being on stage with Motley Crue, and I've never woken up to 10,000 people in my bedroom, the pyrotechnics going off and the guitars and the drum kit. I mean, that'd be really freaking cool. But I've never woken up to that as a hallucination. No, people, when they wake up and they're observing this thing, it is a figure, some sort of figure. So that's one of the problems that I have with this. So here's what I think is going on. I think that sleep paralysis and the shadow phenomenon are two different things happening at the same time. Again, sleep paralysis being a real biological phenomenon and the shadow entities being a real supernatural phenomenon. But, why is it we wake up and we see these things and have sleep paralysis? Well, first of all, not everybody has sleep paralysis when they wake up and see it. A lot of people don't. In fact, when that happened to me my first time, I didn't. I crossed my arms, my mouth opened up. I was able to turn my head when it ran off down the hall. most of these shadow entities that I've actually observed have had nothing to do with a sleep situation. Dave, yours that you saw, you weren't sleeping at the time. You're walking right toward it. So most experiences have nothing to do with sleep. But here's what I think is happening. And I'm going to give an example of, anybody who's been a parent is familiar with this. Child wakes up in the middle of the night. They either had a bad dream, they need to go to the bathroom, need a drink of water, whatever. And they come up to the bed. Now, a lot of children will, tap their parent or shake them and wake them up, but sometimes they won't. And my youngest son, Cameron, was notorious for this, where he would just come up to the bed and just stand there and stare at me. And I would, suddenly wake up and look up and be like, oh my God, Cameron, what are you doing here? And he'd tell me, I had a bad dream, or I need a glass of water, whatever it was. And, we'd go and we'd take care of it. But what was it that woke me up? Because he didn't touch me, but something woke me up and alerted me that he was there. And what that was essentially his presence, his energy woke me up. We all have a toroidal field of energy around us that extends out several feet. So, when his energy crossed with mine, I was able to sense that, and that woke me up. Well, with these shadow entities, they also have an energy. And so we are basically sensing them in the middle of the night. Their energy is crossing with ours. That wakes us up. And sometimes we experience sleep paralysis because that is a natural biological phenomenon. But then when we experience the sleep paralysis and we see the shadow entity there, we even get more scared because, we don't usually think there's a shadow person in my room. We usually think there's an intruder in my room. So that automatically alarms you. But now you can't move because you're experiencing this biological sleep paralysis phenomenon. So that heightens your fear. So it just becomes like this massive domino effect. And so that's my opinion on sleep paralysis.
Do you think it is something where a lot of people experience spirits pinning them down?
So yeah, that's the old hag syndrome part of it. And what's interesting about that is, this is a phenomenon that people have been reporting for thousands of years, all kinds of different cultures. And that's another, thing that I kind of, like to hammer the medical community with. I mean, this isn't something new. People have been experiencing this forever. And they might have a different word for it, and they might have some legend and lore surrounding it. But, some people, like the Karabasan from Turkey is the dark presser, and, you have all these different terms. And so, yeah, that is a really strange and interesting phenomenon that, people wake up and they see this thing sitting on their chest, whether it's, the old hag, the old woman. Some people see like a ghoul sort of creature sitting on their chest. Some people just see a shadow sitting there. There's one woman who reported to me waking up and there was a dire wolf on her chest. And she was, trying to shove the thing off and, she's kind of flailing away. It woke up her husband. Now he turns around and he did not see the dire wolf, but what he saw were the impressions of the paw prints on her shoulders. And, he flipped on the light and the thing disappeared. Really, really interesting and bizarre case. So, and I've had other people where, they didn't have the paralysis. The thing is pressing down on their chest. Guy wakes up and it was a shadow form of the old hag. He didn't see any of the features of the old hag, but he could see kind of the outline and the string of hair. It was all dark. It was all shadowy. And he actually grabbed her by the shoulders and threw her off of him. They actually, fell on the floor together and kind of rolled around and she disappeared. So it goes along, with all of this, the sleep paralysis, part of the shadow phenomenon is the old hag syndrome.
And that's a good place to end it for this half hour, as we are absolutely perfect here on Spaced Out Radio with Mike Ricksecker. He's a great investigator, great researcher, and a fantastic author. You can find his books at MikeRicksecker.com. We'll be back with more paranormal stories right after this. All right, we're clear, my friend.
All right.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Cruising right along. This is actually going pretty quick.
D. McKenna in our chat room wants to ask about Wendigo stories. Do you have any of those? Because I know you're not really a cryptid investigator.
I mean, I haven't experienced any Wendigo. I did a YouTube video on Wendigo probably like a year and a half ago now. So, yeah, I'll get people that ask me, are shadow people Wendigo or Wendigo shadow people? Kind of the same thing with skinwalkers or skinwalker shadow people. And it's like, no, these are actually very different, type of entities. And in fact, people will wonder, are skinwalkers and Wendigo the same thing? And it's, if you look at the lore behind them, skinwalkers are more, of a shapeshifter type of a thing. And, so human into a creature, where a Wendigo is more cannibalistic. I almost kind of think of them as, okay, they're almost like flesh-eating zombies, as opposed to the shape-shifting type entity. So they're a little bit different. But I haven't experienced any. And I don't usually go out into the wild looking for cryptids. I mean, I might encounter something interesting, like I did with the fairies a couple of times, but yeah, not really like Wendigo or skinwalkers. I mean, it's like Skinwalker Ranch is interesting because it's not just the skinwalkers that are happening there. You got paranormal activity there. You have the UFO sightings and things like that. So there's a lot more going on there than just the skinwalkers.
NA says, no way. Mike is actually a guest for once.
Yeah, it looks like some of my viewers are in the house tonight.
Oh,
so
good.
Like Andrew, who dropped the $5 at the beginning. He's one of our viewers.
Yeah, he's here every night. I don't know how he does it between trucking all day and all night, and then listening to paranormal stories. This is why I am absolutely adamant, and I've talked to a bunch of radio people before. I am adamant. I cannot understand for the life of me why SiriusXM doesn't have a paranormal channel.
I couldn't tell you because, a lot of people would listen to that.
Oh, man. I have inquired, and not to them, because trying to get a hold of somebody at SiriusXM is very tough. Very tough. But through my radio stations that we broadcast on, I've tried to kind of find out that way, and it is impossible, man. I mean, up front they want, if you're a specialty channel, they want up to $100,000.
Oh my gosh.
Right up front. Right? And then
that's crazy.
You don't get anything from the subscription pay until you hit like certain ratings and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's nuts. I mean, but you think the only type of programming that they don't have now on SiriusXM is paranormal or supernatural or UFOs or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they pretty much have everything else.
I would love to. And you know what, dude? I would love to have a spaced out radio channel there.
That would be awesome. Yeah, for sure.
You bring a bunch of people such as yourself or whomever over there. I mean, I think they would be blown away, surprised at how high the ratings would be.
Yeah, they probably scoff at paranormal like a lot of other people do, and they just don't realize that there is a huge following.
Oh yeah. We're still the weirdos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, still the weirdos.
Such a shame.
All right. Oh, excuse me. There we go. We got about 2 minutes here. Thank you, Ozzy Rob, for the amazing super chat. Hope your ham hocks are doing well. Please give us an update if you don't mind. We'd appreciate that. Throw that up there.
Robert White. All right.
All right. Nucker wants to know, Mike, what's your opinion of eating breakfast foods for dinner?
I'm cool with it. I'll do it sometimes.
Terrible. Had respect for you. Had total respect for you until that. Son of a gun. Son of a gun. I should mention, while we're waiting, that this time of night we go with our Mighty Moose Beard Oil. Go to MightyMooseBeard.com. Gary the Dutchman is all ready for you. He's got his deal waiting, all right? So you just rub it in your hands, rub it, massage it into your beard, just like so. You can even rub it in your hair. It's not just for the lady or the men. Ladies, you could use it too. It helps with split ends. That's how I take care of my hair. Go to MightyMooseBeard.com. Tell Gary the Dutchman you're using promo code SOR2019. He's going to give you a deal. Here we go with the next half hour. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue our great chat tonight with Mike Ricksecker. He is one of the top paranormal researchers and authors out there in North America. He will be taking in in Laughlin, Nevada next week, UFO MegaCon. It goes all week. Great event. You're going to see a lot of the big names there. I'm not invited because I can't get across the border, but that's okay. That's because of COVID, not because of criminal record. Let's just clarify that right off the bat. Mike, welcome back.
Thanks.
Yes.
You crack me up, Dave.
Well, I try. Well, because some people will say...
it's really too bad you won't be out there.
I would love to be there. But not this time.
Yeah, this is going to be my first time. I'm really looking forward to it. To me, it's kind of hard to fathom. It's an entire week long, but it's just going to be fantastic.
All right, let's get to another question here from Noble Patrick. Why do people find coins sometimes out of the blue in odd places?
That's an interesting question. And, a lot of people attribute that to like fairy or gnome activity, kind of those trickster spirits that, will grab things from you. You'll end up with just something random going missing. You're like, I just put that down on the counter and now it's gone. So those types of entities that do that sort of thing. And then, sometimes you'll find it somewhere else, or like the coin somewhere else. So, that's where you find a lot of these, legends and lore come out of.
I never believed in that phenomena until my 29-year-old nephew passed away, and we're coming up next month to a 3-year anniversary of that. And I never believed in it. I thought it was always just coincidence. I mean, who doesn't look on the ground and every now and again find a penny, nickel, quarter, or if you're in Canada, a loonie or toonie, right? And all of a sudden, after my nephew passed away, I started, and to this day, doesn't happen very often, but I find dimes. And Mike, I am somebody, I don't carry change. I put everything on my plastic, either my debit or my credit card. I don't like carrying money. I just never, it's very rare for me to have a 10 or a 20 or $100 bill in my wallet, because why do that? Why have the cash when I can just put it on plastic, right? And that's kind of the way I've done things as an adult. So I never have change on me. It's very rare that I do. And if I do have change, I get home, I'll immediately put it in my son's piggy bank. And anyways, long story short, after my nephew passed away, I started finding dimes, including I had a pair of pants. I emptied out the pockets. Now, a lot of people who are skeptical will say, well, you probably didn't empty them enough. The next couple, I left those pants. A couple days later, I wanted to wear those pants. I reach into the pocket because something's kind of jabbing me in the pocket, and there's a dime. It's
Interesting.
so strange. Never believed in that phenomena until it happened, man. Never believed in it. I still don't get it.
I've pretty much had that sort of thing happen to me in front of my eyes, and it was during a paranormal investigation years ago. We had one of the investigators. There was a young boy, child spirit that was there, and we're in the bedroom trying to interact with him. And the one investigator makes this remark about his keys that I have these keys here. If you want to play with them, go ahead. And I guess maybe he kind of forgot about it. About, I don't know, maybe half an hour later, we decided to wrap up the paranormal investigation, and he couldn't find his keys. So he just had them, while sitting there on the bed. He had just had them. And so we start, looking all over the house. Of course, we started with that bedroom where he had just been, and then, we're looking everywhere. Could not find those keys. On the kitchen table, a couple of our equipment cases were open, and we had looked through there, and we're passing by them all the time as we're looking in other rooms and what have you. And finally, he ends up saying, "Okay, I get it. I had made the remark about the keys. I really need them back. Could you please return them?" And all of a sudden, those keys were in the one equipment case that we had already looked through a couple of times and had passed by numerous times, going to other places in the house to try to find his keys. And there they were.
That is crazy.
It is.
That is just crazy. All right, let's get to another question. This one comes from Casual Conversation with G&A. What is the worst phenomena you have investigated?
Yeah, so that would have been the case we investigated for the haunted, the monster in the closet case. That's the demonic case I was talking about earlier with Carl Johnson. And in that particular case, the adult daughter was being terrorized by an entity with red eyes. So this one did appear shadowy in nature. It was terrorizing her. It was terrorizing the cat. Other members of the house had seen this. Now, there are all kinds of other hauntings going on in that house. They had been for like 20 years. And finally, it was this thing with the red eyes where they finally came together. And we're like, okay, we need to do something about this. Investigated out there several times. There was a dark history with the house with all these suicides. There were a number of suicides in the house, a couple of attempted suicides. So, we're trying to determine whether it's one of these people that had taken their life in the house, or was it something else? And we ended up deducing that it was something else, probably something attached to the land. They'd been there for a long, long time and was pushing people to do this. And we were starting to see that sort of thing with Taliesin, where she, the family was reporting what she's talking about, hurting herself now. She was, oppressed, kind of moving into the direction of possession. And that's when we got Carl out there, and then we did the filming for all of this. And during that cleansing that we did, we had asked the family to stay outside while we cleansed the interior of the house, but Taliesin, the girl, had come into the house to use the restroom. We ended up finding her in the master bedroom, talking at something against the wall that we couldn't see at that time. And she's, asking questions like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to my family? That sort of thing. So Carl decides to do a blessing over her. And when he does this blessing, all of a sudden, she doubles over in pain like she had just gotten punched in the gut, falls to the floor. We pick her up, get her on the bed. She's okay. She kind of comes to because she was out for like just a brief moment. Later on, when I listened back over my audio from that night, and that exact moment, like just before she got punched in the gut, like a split second before she got punched in the gut, you hear an EVP there that says die. So it's like, die, and then you hear her go, oh, and she drops to the floor. Well, after we got her back up in the bed and she's fine, a lot of other bizarre things started happening. So the back door to the master bedroom blew open. We we shut it, and then it blew open again. And then we had a tri-field meter set up on her dresser right there by the closet where she kept seeing this thing. And that thing started going off. So we have all these things going on. Finally got the situation with the door taken care of, and we resumed the cleansing. So we push this thing out into the backyard. And while we're back there, the wind kicks up. The cats are circling us. It was just like bedlam out there. And finally, Carl finishes pushing the thing out there. He drops to a knee. He's exhausted. But the wind had just completely died down. And what was interesting about the wind is we just had the family standing off in the side yard. So we walk over there and let them know that we're done. And we make some remarks about, well, that wind was crazy, wasn't it? And they're like, what wind? They experienced no wind over there. And it's not a big yard or a big plot of land. They didn't experience any of that over in the side yard when it was, all kinds of, crazy windy in the backyard. So yeah, that night, and that entire investigation was really something else.
How often have you come across demons?
That's the one time. That's what I was talking about with earlier with Carl. I mean, that's the one investigation I've been on, and he being a demonologist, that was the last one he had been on, and that was 10 years ago, 11 almost now.
Why do you think we try and demonize demons? That they're everywhere. We get it through television. Granted, the scarier the better. The more it's played up, the better. I get that. That means ratings. But for most investigators, the chances of actually coming across a demon are slim to none.
Yeah, they really are. They're a lot less common than people believe. I'll have people that will touch base with me, email me, message me, what have you, and they'll say, well, I think I have a demon in my house. Well, why do you think you have a demon in your house? Well, because a candle flew off my mantle. Okay, that doesn't mean you have a demon. That means, for one, it could have been a tremor. I don't know. But, if it was supernatural, you could have had somebody, maybe it was a human spirit in the house that didn't like the candle being there, and they wanted to, move the candle, and it ended up dropping out of the candle holder. What you don't know until you start investigating, and most times it's not. But yeah, ratings sell. When it comes to demons, you see that in all the, paranormal films these days. You see it a lot on television. The scarier, the better. And so, people end up seeing that on TV or what have you. And so they think like the littlest inkling of anything going on in their house, well, it must be a demon because I saw that on TV. Unfortunately, with the field and the paranormal, there's a lot of people who get into the paranormal just because they saw it on TV. These guys are doing it. That's easy. I could do that. And they get into it, not really having studied or really having much experience. They're just throwing themselves out there into this. And so you end up with a homeowner that thinks they have a demon. You have an investigator who their only experience is seeing what they saw on TV. And so now you have these two people that are both, demon crazy when, it's probably just a human spirit in the house.
How do we tell the difference?
Again, that takes a lot of investigating. The example that I like to give, goes back to that Edmund case where, it took a lot of digging. We didn't know for sure whether the thing was demonic or if it was, a human spirit associated with the house. And so we had to do that deep investigation. So, we're hitting the library, we're hitting the police records, all of that stuff, because there was that dark history associated with the house. Was it the father of the original homeowner who, put a rifle in his mouth in that bedroom? Was it the other person who accidentally asphyxiated himself? Was it any of these type of people, or the other guy who attempted? We had to narrow that down. And so you get that information, you look that up, do your research, and then come back to the house and use that as your information to start asking your questions, see what kind of responses you get with the new information that you've just picked up on. And so, we probably investigated there, good 8 times before. And again, we're watching and observing what's going on with the family, and we're seeing, Taliesin getting worse and worse and worse. And it's like, okay, something is, seriously going on with this girl. We're not getting anywhere with this other information. There's something more sinister at play here.
All right, let's move on to another question here. This one comes from Real Paranormal Activity Podcast. Mike, what do you think about orbs?
Most are dust or maybe some sort of moisture in the air. I've seen people send me photographs of, look at all the spirit activity, and it's like, that's a great dust storm. There was a old hospital that we investigated one time that we were getting fantastic dust storm photographs, and so we the old website that we used to have, we threw those up there. We're like, these are not spirits. Although I've seen many other people post those and try to say that they were. When I look at orb photos, really what I'm looking for is, self-illumination. Is this thing giving off its own light and, not something that's reflective? I have myself like one significant orb photo. Most I throw out. But one that's rather significant because it is an illuminated ball of light that's hovering in the middle of the pulpit area of this old abandoned church. Great photo. But most you just kind of take with a grain of dust rather than a grain of salt.
No kidding. Azrazel wants to ask you, what is your interpretation or definition of deja vu?
It's a good question. So deja vu is a glitch in the matrix. That's interesting because, I've had experiences like that. And I think for each person, it's going to be a little different. Like, I'll experience deja vu because it's one of my, kind of quote unquote superpowers, for lack of a better term, are my dreams. I've had dreams that are essentially premonitions of things that are to come. Now, I don't know how long out in the future they may happen, and it's not until the event happens that I'm like, oh, I dreamt of that 3 months ago, or I had a dream about that a year ago. And so for me, that's what a lot of deja vu is they are, some dream that has now come to fruition in life. I also think some deja vu are related to past lives. Like, we end up at a location that we had visited or maybe even lived in a past life. And when we come across that location, there's some inkling in the back of our mind, like, I've been here before. So it's a little bit different for everybody, I think. And to try to figure out specifically what it is, might take a little work and time.
I'm still baffled by it. Still baffled by it. I just find it weird. Do you think deja vu can tie into the Mandela effect?
Okay. Well, it could. And I've actually experienced the Mandela effect. And that wasn't so much deja vu as it was just kind of mind-blowing. And a lot of people, when they think of the Mandela effect, because there are a number of videos and articles out there. So, like the Oscar Mayer thing or the Mr. Monopoly, being different and things like that. For myself and my mother experienced this too. It's for the same thing. There's an old movie called Soul Survivor that's very different now than the way we remembered it. And the way we remembered it was like this old black and white movie from the 1950s, and that there were these ghosts, that they were ghosts of these soldiers from World War II that had crashed in a plane, and they were, spending their time playing baseball, but they didn't know that they were dead until much later in the movie. Well, my mother and I are. This was probably a good 4 or 5 years ago now, and we're sitting at the table at my parents' house, and we're talking about this movie. We're like, man, what was the name of that movie? Yeah, because we were thinking about looking it up and watching it, and so had no idea. I ended up going home and I'm trying to look up the movie, just kind of putting in the description into Google and okay, what was the name of this movie? And lo and behold, there is a lot of conflict about this movie. Because I'm coming across, okay, it's actually a color movie from the early 1970s that starred William Shatner. And, the guys that were ghosts they knew that they were dead all along. And I'm like, there is no way it is that movie. And I, asked my mom, I was like, hey, do you remember William Shatner being in this movie? And she's like, no, absolutely not. This was from like the 1950s, an old black and white movie. And I'm like, so I ended up renting the movie and watching it. And as I'm watching, I'm like, well, there's some elements here that are a little familiar. And the whole William Shatner thing was throwing me off. I'm like, no, William Shatner was not in this movie that my mom and I were thinking of. But it finally gets to a point in this movie where the ghosts are they're kind of sitting around the airplane. The one goes off to listen to the broadcast of a baseball game, comes back, and they ask him, so how was the baseball game? And he was like, well, it was pretty good, but I don't understand how they moved Brooklyn to Los Angeles. He was kind of a dumber character where he actually thought they moved the city of Brooklyn to the city of Los Angeles. And I always remembered that as a kid as being kind of a funny moment in the film. I'm like, oh my God, this is that movie. But how in the world do I and my mother remember it differently? And coming across all the different controversy that I had online, there were other people around the world that also remembered it the way my mother and I did. So what in the world is going on here? So that was really my introduction to the Mandela effect. I don't necessarily think deja vu, but a lot of people will point to things like the Mandela effect when it comes to multiple universes.
I got to tell you this story with David Weatherly about 6 weeks ago. So I have David Weatherly on every couple of months, and he's about to come on, and a few hours before showtime, I'm sitting in my daytime office, and I'm scrolling through, it was either Instagram or Facebook, and I see this book cover come up that says, Sea Monsters of the Great Lakes. And it looks like he always gets the artist Sam Sheeran to
his artist is great.
Yeah, he's fantastic. That type of artistry with David Weatherly, our author David Weatherly at the bottom, scrolled on the bottom. And so I get on the phone with David right before the show, and I'm like, hey, man, this is like 5 minutes before the show. I'm like, hey, man, very excited about talking sea monsters with you and your new book. He goes, yeah, man, it's a really, really good topic, but we got a problem. And I said, what's that? He goes, I haven't written a book on sea monsters of the Great Lakes. And I said, what do you mean, man? And he's like, dude, I haven't written that book. It's a great topic, probably one I should do. So I explained to him the whole thing that I had seen earlier that day. It's pretty hard to miss it when the book cover says by David Weatherly.
Right.
And yet, come showtime, that book did not exist. Tripped me right out,
absolutely
man.
Bizarre. Yeah.
Tripped me right out. And then a couple weeks later at my daytime job, I had some paperwork filled out, told the people, yeah, man, that's all good to go. I've already checked it. I'm transferring it over to you. Next day comes around, go on the computer. Nothing is there. Nothing. Like it never happened. And I was like, okay, this is the second time in like 2.5 weeks. This is really starting to trip me out. Really starting to trip me out. But as we got about a minute to go here, do you buy the Mandela effect?
I mean, since it's happened to me, I mean, basically what my mother and I experienced and these other people is what people would call the Mandela effect. Some of these other things when it comes to like the logo changes and things like that, like the Mr. Monopoly thing where people remember him with a monocle. The idea that people might be confusing him with Mr. Peanut. It's like, okay, I could see that would, maybe some confusion there, but some of these other larger things like the whole reason why this thing came about, Nelson Mandela, where people believe that in the 1980s he died. I'm one of those people that, seem to remember that there was something back in the 80s about him dying. And, here it comes along, years later. No, he's actually not dead. He's still alive. So there's got to be something to it.
Right. You know what? The one for me when we go for break is the Ford logo. Because Ford says that little curly Q on the F has always been there. And yet I have a key in my hand that shows that it's not on there.
Ah, there you go.
Spaced Out Radio continues with Mike Ricksecker right after this. All right, brother.
All right. Yeah, David Wedler is a good guy. I've known him for a long time.
Me too. We're going to take a break here. I just got to run my dogs out one more time. I'll be right back here. Sure. And I'll pot your mic down and go like this. And I'll be right back, brother. All right, I am back. And give me 2 seconds here, buddy.
Sure.
All right, there we go. All right. I know I'm missing a bunch of questions here from the audience, but we will do our best. Chris Mo, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us from Austria. Aykroyd, what's happening? Good Canadian kid. All right, who else do we got here? Space Cat Crow, how you doing? Welcome back. Kyle Evans, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. Silent Edge Videos, thank you for coming on in. Appreciate you. Cedric, what's happening, my man? I think we're all caught up on the newbies coming into the chat room. Not bad. 138 people watching tonight, man.
All right, good deal.
Yeah, and a big thank you to Rye, to Rob, to Ed, to Sig, Greco, Jeremy, Andrew, and Carl for the super chats tonight. Hi, Terrible Times. How you doing? Nice to see you back, my friend. And let's rock and roll. Hey, Super Quest.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us tonight, Clam? Let's see here. He's got Eclipsarin. Eclipsarin is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. One of the top paranormal researchers in North America is with us tonight. Mike Ricksecker is here. You can find any of his books at MikeRicksecker.com. He is a great dude. He is appearing next week at Laughlin's UFO MegaCon. That is in Nevada. And this guy's a great speaker, very knowledgeable, very insightful, and we're lucky to have him as a friend of this show and someone who will come on anytime. Mike, welcome back.
As always, thanks for having me back, Dave.
Not a problem. Right before the break, we were kind of getting into the Mandela effect. And, you know, this isn't something I had planned on talking about, but hey, what the heck? Why not? Let's just get into it. We'll get into it right now with it all. And you do believe there's something happening. Do you think that we have switched timelines, or do you think that this is just some natural phenomena, or is it just trickery of our brain because of the way the internet works?
That's a great question. And a lot of people will think that, okay, maybe it's some sort of, alternate universe that's been spun out of, the idea that, whenever a decision is made, it changes, it'll change. It has, well, not really the butterfly effect, but, when you make a decision, it'll spawn off a whole nother universe. And so that there's, infinite number of universes out there, from all these decisions that we've made. And I kind of have a hard time with that because every single person makes millions of decisions every day. So for each one of those to spawn off another universe, I don't know. But there's something going on that is affecting the timeline. because we do have these different things that come up like this, in which we have a memory of something that somehow turns out to be very different. And you just showed, Dave, before the break, that you have this key with the Ford logo that's different than what they're saying it has always been. So what exactly is that? Is there something going on perhaps, with time travel? And we talk about, at times we see it in our pop culture that, if somebody goes back in time and changes something, that it has, adverse effects on the future. But we pawn that off as, science fiction. But what if we've seen in which we've taken our science fiction, you look at, Star Trek and shows like that, in which we end up making those science fiction topics into reality. Well, what if one of those scientific topics with time travel has happened in the future, and people have gone back and have changed something in the past to alter the timeline, and now different things are happening? I think that's absolutely a possibility.
It still weirds me out. Okay, you have to look beyond the Fruit Loops box or the Berenstain Bears or anything along those lines. But for you, when you look at the Mandela effect, what are you focusing on? What are the big ones out there that are really catching your attention, rather than the cartoonish ones that we're all kind of used to?
Yeah, I'm looking at things like what happened with myself and my mother, some of these other, bigger things that aren't necessarily, logos, because people can kind of confuse that, with their eyes. When you take, like what we experienced, an entire storyline, the time frame that this thing was supposed to have taken place in, and all of that. I mean, you're talking about an hour and a half to 2 hour event that we had witnessed, and multiple times, back in the day. I remember seeing that movie several times when I was a kid, that somehow that got severely altered. So it's bigger events like that, things that have, taken long periods of time or have a larger production value to, that have somehow, some way been changed.
Interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. All right. Let's continue on here with everything, because I know we do have more questions coming up here from our audience, and our chat room is moving so fast here right now. It's getting pretty hard to catch up, and I feel kind of embarrassed when we kind of go through this. But for you, as you look at the entire paranormal landscape right now, are we close to trying to find any sort of proof on anything? I know we're close to UFOs, but whether it's Sasquatch, whether it's other dimensions where you believe the shadow people may land, or anything like that, what do you think we're close to proving?
Another good question. Yeah, we're certainly closer on UFOs, but again, I think all these things are related to some degree or another. I think that what will happen is when we start to figure out how to traverse other dimensions, and we look at that in the sense of when people talk about utilizing wormholes to be able to travel across the universe. Well, what do they end up talking about? Okay, well, bending space and time to make that happen. If we could bend space and time, but you fold that over and you punch your hole through, and you're able to go. But basically, what that is telling us is that we're looking into technology to be able to access those other dimensions, to be able to manipulate space and time. And I think when we do figure out how to manipulate space and time and access these different realms, that's going to open up seeing a lot more of those entities around us. I think we're going to realize, here are all these things surrounding us that we didn't know for sure were there before, but now that we're able to access these other dimensions, now we can see them.
No, and I very much understand that, but do you believe we are living in parallel universes or simultaneous timelines?
So this is what I think of time. I think time is all happening concurrently, past, present, future. It's all happening at the same time. And that's why, we'll see sometimes like a time slip where suddenly we're able to, see a moment from the past, but those people from the past will look at us like we're the ghosts. And, so we're experiencing a time slip, something. And I think that happens because those two moments in time are resonating at the same frequency for a brief moment, and we're able to see and experience each other. For parallel universes, what's interesting about this, so, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, the proofs that they've been going through there mathematically, they're showing that, well, there is a multiverse out there. There are these other universes out there. What's interesting about that is they're not necessarily parallels in the sense like, there's, an infinite number of you and me, that, these other universes, while, perhaps from the same source, some die off real quick. They each have, different physical characteristics that, some would die off real quick, or some end up going through a different life cycle and, don't necessarily have, the same planets and structure and things like we do with this universe. So that's kind of interesting. But then you have things like the Anita project down in Antarctica, where some of the testing that they had done down there was, giving some proof and showing that there may actually be a parallel universe to us that's running in reverse time. How that would look and work, I'm not sure, but it's certainly fascinating.
Yeah, I really don't know because, I listened to Lou Elizondo speak, and I've heard other people speak about it as well, that whatever is flying in our skies right now, we don't know where it's coming from, and we can't really cut out any theory, whether it's coming from space, whether it's coming from an alternative dimension or timeline, inner Earth, or from the future. When you see all of this going on with the research you have done, where do you think it's most likely coming from, these craft or these potential, what we consider aliens?
Yeah, there are a lot of different possibilities out there, and they're kind of all on the table. Kind of like you said, are they ourselves from the future? Are they actually alien craft? I'm probably more into the onto the team of, I think these are alien craft coming from some other galaxy out there. But I'm not opposed to thinking some of them are ourselves as well from the future. But I guess when I think of that, I don't necessarily think that they would come as some sort of craft in the sky like that. I think if we figured out that in the future, that it would be more subtle, something on the ground, not necessarily in the air, because I think that's where our technology for something like it. Well, and even then, when it comes to time travel, I don't necessarily think we need technology for it in the sense of some sort of craft. I think, again, pop culture coming into it, we've been talking about, a time machine and creating this thing, or like the DeLorean, having to go 88 miles an hour. I think we've kind of, set our minds on that, but I think a lot of time travel can be done, with the consciousness. So not saying that some of those craft aren't time travelers, but I think a lot of them are probably ETs from some other galaxy. And then of course there's always a possibility that some of these are secret military technology that they're trying to disguise with false information, so that you're thinking UAPs, UFOs, and not thinking some sort of secret military project.
Very true, but the big debate with the UFOs right now is what is going on. What do you think is happening? Because I know, even though you focus on the paranormal, I know you're the type of guy who is literally studying everything. You're keeping your pulse on everything. When you look at from an outsider's standpoint, because I know it's really not your top forte, do you think the UFO crowd right now in the UFO world is just in a big mess that it can't get out of right now, created by a number of people, from those on social media to those in the government?
Well, the problem with the UFO community is much the same as the paranormal community, which are all the hoaxes that are out there. All the false videos and photos and all of that. There's so much of it out there. I mean, there's certainly legit footage that's there, but there's so much of it that's hoaxed because somebody's looking for 1 million YouTube views. Which really hurts the field in both paranormal and the UFO. So that really hurts. I do think we're going through a period of disclosure. The United States government has known for a long time that these things have existed, and for a long time, they went through, all the methodology to cover this up and paint anybody who believed in UFOs as being crazy. But I think we've gotten to a point now with our technology, and everybody having a cell phone, that you can't disguise this anymore. But they've kind of been grooming us for it. The whole idea that, between Hollywood and pop culture, that they've kind of been grooming us to get to that point of disclosure. I do believe that, back in the 1950s and 1960s, people weren't really ready for it. It was more of a new phenomenon that people were starting to talk about. And, so you had the Brookings report come out and, kind of say that, no, these people are going to go nuts if you disclose this. So, they disguised it as, okay, this is not really happening. And people who are following UFOs are just, they're nut jobs. But we saw it become more and more prevalent through our pop culture. So now when you ask the younger crowd, do you believe in UFOs? Most people are like, oh yeah, sure. The aliens, extraterrestrials, they exist. Don't know if that photograph there is of a legitimate UFO, but I believe they're out there. So we're more accepting of it now. So I think we're getting to that point where we're gonna see some disclosure. The government now, when some of these different pieces of video footage come out, they're either admitting, yeah, that one we can't identify, or at least no comment. So they're not saying no anymore, which is definitely some progress. But yeah, it makes me hopeful, but when it comes to the government, I always have to think, okay, but what are they not still telling us? There's something there that they're always keeping.
And that leads to my next question. Do you think they're playing us as fools? And I don't mean that in an insulting way, because I've talked to Lou Elizondo a couple of times now on this show and a couple of times off the air. And I think he's a very genuine guy. I do. I think he wants what's best. I know there's a lot of stories that he cannot talk about because of his non-disclosure agreements. However, when I look at the overall subject, the way some of these government officials are playing us as stupid, that they don't know what's in the airspace. They don't know if it's from Russia or China. They don't know how a craft can go from 80,000 feet to 50 feet above sea level within 1 second. And I'm thinking, you've had 70 years. You know what happened at Roswell. You know what happened at Phoenix. You've played people as stupid. You've decharacterized people. You've defamed people. You've shunned people. You've put people in loony bins. People have died over this subject over the years. And now you're going to play, oh, we didn't know it was happening. Mike, are we being played as fools?
Oh, absolutely. Because, for them to come out and say, some of these, the couple of clips that they're actually admitting now are UAPs, to say, oh, this is a first, like you said, we didn't know. It's like, well, wait a minute. You knew, back in, the 1950s, that's why you created Project Blue Book, was to look into this phenomenon. They still have 700 outstanding cases that they couldn't figure out. So yeah, they're absolutely playing us for fools. They think that the general public are stupid, and there are going to be plenty of people that, kind of towed along with them, but there are many people out here that research and investigate this phenomenon that are just like, well, hey, wait a minute. And even, the average person that doesn't research, that just, they know better, they can put two and two together and realize, well, wait a second, these guys are, not being legit here with us. But yeah, they do try as much as they can to play us for fools. To what end, we don't know, because we're not in those conversations for what the end game is. But they will try to tote us along as long as they can.
That's very true. As we got about 4 minutes left with you, this show has flown on by, my friend. It really has. For you, what are your plans as we head into summer here? Now that things are opening up, you could get back to doing what you do best, which is investigating. So what's your work like?
Yeah, so right now we just had the Shadow Dimension docuseries come out here a little over a month ago, which has been fantastic. So it can be found on 3 different platforms right now, Vimeo, Cosm, and Zuzu. And then there's 3 more platforms at least that is coming out on here very, very soon. Tubi, Plex, and I think it was Groover's the other one. So I'm doing additional filming for a season 2 on that. And the Egypt trip coming up here later this month is going to be a part of that. We're going to get into the ancient history of these shadow entities. So that's a big project. Season 2 of the Shadow Dimension. A lot more writing, working on the Alaska Triangle book, but really just to try to, get back out there, do some of these conferences, get back out on the road, do some of the investigating and research. And that's kind of what I'm looking to, forward to, is stretching my legs again here.
Well, you know what? I would like to bring you on in a couple of months again. The reason why is I haven't done a show yet on the Alaskan Triangle. Mm-hmm. I've wanted to. Just, it's one of those topics, you sit down and you're brainstorming, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'd love to do one on the Alaskan Triangle, but then all of a sudden you book your schedule, and that topic's still off topic. But I would love to bring you on in a couple months again to sit down and talk with us about that in depth.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
I'd be happy to.
I will get my booking team to reach out to you, or otherwise it'll be myself, but that's good. We got 2 minutes left, my friend. Do us a favor. Go in depth. Where can we find your books? Where can we find information, your videos, your documentaries? Lay the lowdown on us.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can, find me, my books, at MikeRicksecker.com. All the information for the Shadow Dimension, you can find at shadowdimension.com. So, check out the trailer, check out the extended sneak peek out there, and then it has the links to the platforms where you can watch it. Of course, Haunted Road Media YouTube channel, and then the Edge of the Rabbit Hole YouTube channel, which has our live stream show that's on Tuesday nights. And then there's the Connected Universe portal. So this is a new online learning platform that I've put together, as well as a membership site that has all kinds of ways to access me. We've got all kinds of articles out there, monthly Q&As, behind the scenes videos, sneak peek videos, Mike's Morning Mug, which is like a kind of off the cuff video blog. So all kinds of stuff out there. So check that out. It's connecteduniverseportal.com.
I think you're doing awesome work, my friend. It has been way too long since we had you on the show, but damn it, man, I'm glad we did this. We reconnected, got you on here. You were always so informative and so well spoken about these topics, and this is why I literally consider you one of the best out there, my friend. Keep up the hard work.
I appreciate that, Dave, and I look forward to talking with you some more, my friend.
Absolutely. We will do that very soon. Once again, MikeRicksecker.com. He's got 11 books out. His latest, all about shadow beings, shadow dimensions. I mean, you want to get this. It's properly written. It's well-researched. It is something, I don't like saying a lot of people's books, go get them, but with Mike, you're getting good quality for the value. If you love to read about these subjects, these are the type of books you want to add to your library. MikeRicksecker.com, once again, is the website. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, we're going to take you on a little news journey in the final half hour. We have the SOR News Wire. We have the Thought of the Dave. Stay tuned. A jam-packed Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. Great job, man.
All right, thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having me back.
Yeah, we'll get you on
time.
in a couple months. Just let me know when you're free, and I can book that up.
Okay.
And actually, I got my schedule here. Hold on, I'm doing this new online calendar thing.
Okay.
Let me just bring this up here. Let's bring you back in August. You want to come in August or September?
Sure. Yeah, August works. I'm actually pretty open in August.
Wonderful. What day of the week works best for you?
I mean, honestly, Thursdays works really well.
Thursday? Why don't you mark Thursday let's see here. I'm making sure.
Just not the end of the month, because Thursday the 26th, I'm going to be up in Michigan.
Yeah. Why don't we do the first Thursday of August, which is the 5th?
The 5th. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to put you in here. We'll talk about the Alaskan Triangle.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, man. That works for me.
All right.
Yeah, if you want to put that in your schedule, then we got it done, and that way it's already set.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
All right.
Appreciate you, man.
Get that in here. Thank you, Dave. Absolutely appreciate it. It's always great talking to you.
Always, buddy.
Even though it's this late at night for me,
I know.
It's always you ask such great questions. Like, seriously,
Thank
you ask a lot different questions than I usually get, and makes me think while we're doing this.
That's the audience, man. That's the audience, and they deserve all the credit for helping me with my brain lapses while I try and do everything at once here. So give them the credit. They're the ones who are asking half the questions tonight, and I'm just relaying them to you. But it's their brilliancy that keeps us going, man.
No, fantastic.
All right, brother.
Yeah.
You go get some sleep
as well. Yeah, we'll do.
Take care. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Mike Ricksecker, everybody. How awesome was that? Great guy. Great guy. Look at that. It's cutting off my chin in there. Look at that. Now you can't see my face. I wonder why. I wonder if we did this. Hold on. Bring that down just a little. There we go. Oh, by the way, I want to give a shout out to one of my good friends down in Texas, Brad Bunt. I got a package from him, and I got to go tomorrow. I got a couple more packages. But he was complaining that I didn't have anything from Texas in my studio. So he sent me this Texas flag that says, "Come and take it." I don't know what that thing is. I know I have to read up on it. He sent me some information on it. But this is a wonderful flag that I am going to hang up in the studio. Thank you, Brad Bunt. Really do appreciate it. I will give you a call tomorrow if you're not listening right now. If you are, you can send me a text message. But yes, I did get it, and I've got a great spot that I can hang this, and I'm going to hang it up, man. I promise you it's going to be in the studio here very, very shortly. Hung up. I have a couple of places that I could put it. So I got to reread the notes. It was a busy night for me here at home before the show, and I think we're good. I think we'll get that sorted out, and I will read up on it. So thank you, Brad. Really do appreciate it. And yeah. Oh, is that what it is, Joe? I have no idea. I'm way too Canadian for that. It's a Second Amendment thing. I honestly don't know. Where did I put the notes? I may have left them upstairs. Yeah, I think I left it upstairs. Yeah. Either way, I liked it. I like it. It's awesome. It's weird getting gifts from you guys. It's so cool because I like putting them up in the studio. Like if you saw in my studio how many dirty filth pictures I have around here, I got to find places to hang all of them. I do. It's awesome. Oh, okay, thank you, Dirt Road. It's a reference to if you want our guns, come and take them. Got you. All right, thank you to Dirt Road, Patrick, Rob, Ed, Rye Guy, Sig, Greco, Jeremy, Andrew, and Carl for the amazing super chats tonight. Love the support. Thank you to all our new subscribers. Here we go with the final half hour. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Yes, our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, let's rock and roll here. And this is how it ends. All right, I'll stop singing. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes, sometimes lightning can hit the same place twice. Well, remember that Canadian politician we told you about a month or two ago, appearing naked in front of an internal parliamentary feed? Yeah. Well, William Amos has left a little red face again. How? Well, the representative of the Quebec district of Pontiac since 2015 for the Liberal Party has once again had to apologize for urinating while virtually attending a Commons proceedings. It comes just after a month after he appeared naked on the feed with only what appeared to be a mobile phone preserving his modesty. So he had to release another apology statement on Twitter. It says, "Last night while attending House of Commons proceedings virtually in a non-public setting, I urinated without realizing I was on camera. I am deeply embarrassed by my actions and the distress they may have caused anybody who witnessed them, because Lord knows nobody else on this planet pees unless you are a politician and on Zoom. While accidental and not visible to the public, this was completely unacceptable, and I apologized unreservedly. I will be stepping aside temporarily from my role as parliamentary secretary and from my committee duties so that I can seek assistance." You gotta be kidding me. Only a idiot politician would say that I need to step away and seek assistance because you showed up naked for work one day and you pissed on the other one. He goes on to say, "I will continue to represent my constituents, and I am grateful to be their voice in Parliament." Exactly. So is your penis while you are urinating, my friend. You are the urinator of your constituency. I am deeply appreciative for the support of my staff and the love of my family and the entire world who is laughing at you for pissing in public once again. How about learning, instead of getting assistance about this troublesome time of you hanging your Peter out, right in the middle of a parliamentary session, or hanging your Peter for a pee in another parliamentary session? How about you just learn to use your step away, leave the chat for a moment? How about mute There is a mute button. Look, I'm going to try it right now, just so you can figure it out. Here we go. Muted. Muted. See how that works? That's how it works, guy. Will, buddy, pal, come on. Everybody pees. You showed up nude. First time. I mean, come on. Give us some more to laugh about. You don't need psychological help. You don't need a psychiatrist for showing up naked on a Zoom meeting. You don't need a psychiatrist to teach you how to pee more quietly. What you need to do is press the mute button. And if you're naked, don't show up for work without clothes. It's pretty normal. It's been done for, probably the last few centuries. People showing up to their jobs with clothes on. I don't think the peasants who worked the fields for the royal family back in 1692 had a problem figuring out whether or not they should get dressed in the morning or not. I don't get it. My friend, my parliamentary friend, be vigilant, be strong. And remember, even the Queen pees. Yes, she does. So you'll be okay that Her Royal Highness goes to the bathroom to tinkle. You can too. You don't need a psychiatrist for it. Whew. That was a fun rant. That was a fun rant. I'm just going to say that. Right? Maybe I should just strip down and do this radio show. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'm going to do it right now. Strip down for the radio show. Not for the YouTube audience, but for the radio show. I'm going to strip on down here. No, I'm not. Then I got to get up. I don't want to get up. I'm comfy in my chair. Take a good look at the photograph above. That's because you can't see it right now. I'm looking at it. It is of what they call the Black Knight satellite. NASA captured an image of this mysterious black object orbiting Earth back in 1998 during the first space shuttle mission to the International Space Station. The space agency refers to this strange entity as item STS-088-724-66 in a catalog of space junk floating in lower Earth orbit within 1,200 miles. Jerry Ross, an astronaut who took part in that mission, said that the object is a wayward thermal blanket that broke loose while his team tried to attach an American module to a Russian module on the ISS. But for a small devoted following, it's a 13,000-year-old artificially made satellite known as the Black Knight. So could this particular and peculiar object really have come from ancient aliens, or is it just an innocuous piece of space debris? The facts surrounding the Black Knight are cobbled together from a number of different stories. And what happened? I just lost this. There it is. All right. It begins with Nikola Tesla, who said that he had received radio signals from space during his 1899 radio experiments in Colorado Springs. Martians, he believed, were attempting to communicate with humans through numbers since they are a universal language. But today, we still don't know what the hell it is. Is it 13,000 years old? Is it a piece of space junk? You decide. You decide. All right, moving on. A 1914 Babe Ruth pre-rookie card has been valued at $6 million, making it the most expensive sports trading card of all time. The privately owned card will be partially sold on Collectible, a fractional investing platform where users can buy shares of sports memorabilia. This is a card that depicts a 19-year-old Ruth, then a picture with the minor league Baltimore Orioles before the Red Sox bought his contract on July 4th, 1914. He made his Major League Baseball debut a week later. Collectible will offer 20,000 shares at $3 apiece, with the total offering equaling 1% of the card's equity. Once that IPO is complete, example, once all shares are sold, this will officially be the most valuable card ever. The big picture is that the trading card boom that exploded early in the pandemic and evolved with the influx of NFTs has only gotten bigger. When we ran a similar story in March, 7 of the most 10 most expensive, boy, did I say that wrong, cards ever have been sold in the previous 8 months. Since then, 4 more cards have entered the top 10, including 3 in the past 2 weeks. Final numbers, for the first time ever, the 10 most valuable trading cards of all time are each worth over $3 million. Well, let's read off that list for you. Here we go. Babe Ruth's 1914 pre-rookie card, $6 million. LeBron James 0304 rookie patch autograph, $5.2 million. Mickey Mantle's 52 Topps card, $5.2 million. Luka Doncic Logoman autograph, $4.6 million. Mike Trout baseball player, his card from 2009 Superfractor autograph, $3.9 million. Honus Wagner's rookie card, $3.8 million. Wayne Gretzky's rookie card, $3.8 million. And then the other 3, Honus Wagner's. All right, these are the same card with lower ratings from PSA, 3.7, 3.2, and 3.1 million. I had 4 Wayne Gretzky rookie cards, and I lost them playing them. You know, when you'd stand the cards up against a wall, and then you'd play knockdowns with your friends. That's how I lost them. 4 of them. 3.8 million a piece. Now, that's a almost perfect card. But it would be worth a lot of money, nonetheless. A New York driver was ticketed Wednesday when police say an officer realized he didn't have a passenger with him while driving in the carpool lane on the Long Island Expressway. 20-year-old Justin Kunis allegedly attached a white theater mask to the passenger's side headrest in an effort to make it appear someone was sitting there. Drivers in many states can pay hefty fines for driving solo in HOV lanes. Kunis's fee wasn't reported, but they generally run well over $100 in New York. In February, a California driver who allegedly went all out with a realistic-looking dummy was also ticketed. The dummy wore a plaid shirt, Cleveland Indians ball cap, and a face mask. The driver didn't say much, California Highway Patrol Officer Rodrigo Jimenez said, other than he's been driving with the mannequin and he's been getting away with it for a year and a half. The driver had been pulled over by another officer who noticed something wrong with the mannequin. Don't get it. Oh, this poor soul. I mean, how dare this happen on social media? An influencer, and I hate that word, influencer. All right? Anyways, an influencer has been questioned by her fans after posting a picture of herself in business class of a plane before returning to her seat in economy. 27-year-old Oceane Elhimer uploaded a photo to her Instagram profile for her 846,000 followers, but a fellow passenger claimed that they then spotted her taking her seat in economy. Dressed in a green and purple tracksuit, Oceane, from Bordeaux, France, struck a model pose with the business class section on the plane, visible in the background. But a second image, which has since been shared on Twitter, shows her sitting in economy with the rest of the peasants, with her phone in hand, looking into the aisle. Oh, the poor soul. The image uploaded by Oceane, which received more than 100,000 likes, was captioned, "Next stop, Monaco J, fly to la nuit," which translates, "I fly all night." But when she was ousted by one of her own fans, who shared the candid snap of her on Twitter with the caption, "Oceane Elhimer in economy, LOL," then another fan shared an image with a comment that has been translated as, "Just because she's on TV doesn't mean she has to fly business class." No, Oceane became first famous after starring in a reality TV show called Les Princes et les Princesses de l'Amour, or The Prince and Princess of Love, with her twin sister Marine. Yes, in the show, they both competed for the affection of the same man, and since then, she has appeared in other shows about the lifestyles of the incredibly affluent. Well, she's not that affluent if she's flying in the cargo bay with the rest of us. All right, moving on. Speaking of influencers, when it comes to social media, we've heard of platforms banning users for cruel comments and harassment, but this one woman is claiming she was booted off of Twitter for being too hot. Yep. Whitney Page Venable has now opened up about the emotional scarring she has suffered after she was kicked off of Twitter on November in 2020. She had been a member for 8 years. The 26-year-old model from Florida, who has 1.6 million followers on Instagram, says she was shocked, feels discriminated against for being pretty. Yeah, she goes on to say, the ban came as a complete shock to me, as I'd never used Twitter other than to write a few comments about TV shows I was watching or share photos from my Instagram account. One day, I changed my cover photo to an innocent shot of me showing off my figure, but I was wearing underwear. And suddenly, poof, my account was banned. Oh, there's the photo too. That isn't much underwear. I'm going to tell you that right now. Not much underwear at all. I think she has those gross butt implants. Anyways, Whitney continued, it made me feel discriminated against because there are far worse pictures on Twitter. Some of them look like actual porn showing off really graphic angles. I'm sure that if I wasn't so good looking, the photo would have stayed up. I firmly believe Twitter deleted my account because I'm too hot, and jealous people who aren't as attractive complained or said I was promoting sexual activity. It's just not fair. The model claims she repeatedly contacted Twitter to appeal the decision, but has so far been unable to speak to them. She ultimately tried to set up another account, but discovered her IP address was blocked, and so had to get a new phone and start from scratch. Heaven forbid. She added, I feel extremely upset because I was able to grow the account to almost 100,000 followers, and then I got banned for nothing. And then they won't get back to me at all. I've complained and complained, but nothing happens. Do they not realize at Twitter that she is good looking? Come on. She's way too good looking for this to happen. Come on, Jack Dempsey. Where is your humanity? Figure this out. Yep, she goes, it's not my problem that some people aren't as good looking as me. She definitely is confident, don't you think? Definitely is confident. And finally tonight, all right, remember that story I told you about a year ago, about that 5-year-old little kid who literally stole mom and dad's Dodge Journey with like $3 in his pocket, and he was going to drive to California because he wanted to buy a Lamborghini? Well, he's from Utah too. Well, Utah toddlers obviously trying to pull the same crap. A 9-year-old Utah girl and her 4-year-old sister, who apparently wanted a road trip to California to swim in the Pacific Ocean, walked away from a head-on crash soon after starting their journey. The girls traveled several miles from their home in West Jordan north to West Valley City early Wednesday before the underage driver veered into oncoming traffic, slamming into a semi-truck. Holy cow, those kids could have been hurt. Both of the girls were wearing seat belts, and no one else was injured in the incident, according to reports. West Valley City Police Lieutenant Bill Merritt explained that the officers on the scene said if the girls hadn't been buckled in, it would have been pretty bad because the vehicles were pretty munched. Yeah, both the semi and the car had to be towed away. The 9-year-old first sideswiped a pickup truck whose driver started following them, thinking the driver was impaired. He discovered the driver of the other vehicle was not impaired, but in fact a 9-year-old kid driving her sister. The two reportedly left the house under the cover of darkness at 4:30 in the morning while their parents slept. The parents didn't find out about the joyride until police called them after the crash. Officers wondered if the parents had talked to the girls about taking a trip to California in the future, but the girls apparently didn't want to wait and said, we're going on our own. Screw you, Mom and Dad. We're skipping this place, getting out of this joint at 4:30 in the morning. You sleepyheads are not even going to hear us. And boom, you need a new car because insurance isn't going to probably cover this one. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What do you think the purpose of shadow beings are? Let's start off with Captain Shirk. Shirky Poo, we call her around here. To remind us just how close we are to the other dimensions, thus scaring the daylights out of us, which could send us to that other dimension much sooner than what we had wanted. Cat, to scare the crap out of us. Michael, I believe they are entities that can't fully manifest themselves, but yet possess so much malevolent energy they can harm people. Joshua, I would have to say that they could possibly be negative entities given all the stories, none of which are good. Maybe lost souls who refuse to move on anywhere. Penman, they're like mosquitoes. They are here to annoy us and have no real purpose. Chris, being a firefighter for nearly 23 years and a combat medic in the Army, I've become accustomed to death as part of my vocation. I've seen solitary shadow beings standing in the background on multiple scenes. It seems like they are just there waiting. Always a single shadow figure about the size of an adult person. Each occasion was at a death. But this hasn't happened every time I've worked such a call. The first few times when I was younger and new, it unsettled me. Now I know what it means and almost react to the shadow figures just like they were any other responder on the scene. Wow, Chris. I think we may need to bring you on the air for that. That is pretty incredible. Nikki, too many possibilities, just a smattering of ideas. Some are spirits, some are ETs, some are guides, some are other beings. But the one thing they all are is this. Each are a specific frequency. At the second we see them as a shadow, we, are seeing the low end of their frequency. Thank you to everybody participating in the Thought of the Dave today. We will do it all again very, very shortly on the next episode. We do it on the next episode. What the heck? Thank you to Captain Shirk for the wonderful SOR Newswire, and Mike Ricksecker for hanging on out, talking all things shadow people, and even a little Mandela effect. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone listening in on our chat rooms on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and everybody chomping their bits on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we own the night, Mr. Bumblefoot. We need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, make sure it's not Vin or Bapster, because they'll cause you some trouble. Good night.